Jeff Miller here, Head of Instruction at Target Test Prep. In today's video, we're going to talk about how long you need to prepare for your GMAT focus, or how many hours you should study for your GMAT focus. So let's get started. For figuring out your number of hours, there's some important things to think about. First one is, where are you starting at? If you don't know your starting score, you're not going to know how many hours you need to take to get to your goal score. That's the second thing you need. So 1, starting score, 2, goal score. Those are the two main things you need initially to figure out the amount of time you will have to prep for your GMAT focus. So if you don't have that stuff, get it. For your baseline score, spend some time learning about the GMAT focus. What's going on with data insights, with quant, with verbal. Look at some sample questions. Do some sample questions. Get that foundation ready for you. Maybe it's a couple days, maybe it's a week, but don't go too far beyond that. Second, know your goal score. Right now, GMAT Focus is a newer test, as you probably know. Some schools are giving their GMAT Focus average scores. Others might not be. If you don't see it on schools' websites, what do? Call the folks in admissions, get some information, because there's a big difference if you're 200 points off your score goal, 100 points, 150 points. That's how you're then going to dictate how long you may need to study. Now, some people look at the amount of time as hours versus months. Someone may say, how many hours do I need? That's usually a better way to look at it, because if you're asking months, well, that depends on how many hours a day, hours a week you're studying. If someone's studying 10 hours a week versus 20, well, then the number of months that they're going to need, assuming that they're starting at the same place and need to get to the same place, is roughly going to be double. So keep that in mind when you're kind of mapping this out. And yes, you should map it out. You should sit down once you have your baseline score, once you have your goal score, figure out what you can do daily, figure out what you can do weekly. We talk about this all the time. It's not a given that you're just going to study every day. So if you don't write it down, if you don't get it into a calendar, there's a good chance you're going to say, well, I'll do this tomorrow. Well, I'll do this the next day. It's not that much fun to study for the GMAT. It's like a job. And the problem is you probably have a job or you're in school. So you got to sit down, you got to look at your schedule and say, when can I fit in this time? Now, from our end, what we recommend is about 18 hours per week of prep. What does that mean? If you can do it, 2 hours during the week, 4 hours each weekend day, that's 18 hours. If you can do more, do it. That'd be great. If you can't, well, then do the best you can. And to fit in that many hours, what does it mean? Well, it means that outside of your family responsibilities, your professional or school responsibilities, you really do have to take all that other stuff and set it down. You don't want to be in a position where you are still trying to go to happy hours or do certain things on weekends that maybe you otherwise don't need to be doing. So really think about that stuff. I'm not saying take your life and completely turn it upside down. What I am saying is you've got to find pockets of time, real time, where you can study for your GMAT. And then when you know that, you can start to develop these estimated timelines. Now remember, these are very rough ideas of what you need. But if you take your first practice exam, let's say you get a 505, but you want a 705 on your test, so a 200-point increase. If you're doing 18 hours a week, there's a good possibility you're going to need about 6 to 8 months to get that in. Now, as you drop that down further, let's say you score a 585 on your first test, practice test, but need a 705. Maybe that's closer to about 4 months. Now, these are not scientific. This is just what we've seen from students. And to be honest with you, a lot about your timeline is really reflective on how quickly you're picking up on the material and how efficiently you're learning the material. Because it's possible that you're going to have some study materials that aren't great, or it's possible that you're going to use study materials that are. So what you need to do is make sure that your prepping is efficient, you're sticking to your schedule, and that's going to help you get through it. And you can re-evaluate your timeline after a few months, after a number of weeks, to see if you're still on point to get to the end by the time you need to get to. So remember, this is an ever-evolving process, but the key things that you got to understand is to figure out how long you need to study and try to stick to it. Is you need to get the baseline score. That's 1. 2, you need to know your goal score. 3, you have to have the right prep materials and the right study plan so that you know you're learning the material efficiently. and you just need to work your butt off. And if you can do all that, it shouldn't be a crazy endeavor getting from beginning to end of your prep. You should be able to knock this thing out 4 to 6 months for most students and be well on your way. And the GMAT focus will just be a distant memory. All right, I had a blast talking to you about how long you need to study, how many hours you need to study for the GMAT focus. Hopefully you found some of those tips helpful. Remember, it's different for everybody. You just got to get started, make your estimate, and then get moving. If you enjoyed today's video, please leave comments, subscribe to our channel. We'd love to do other videos in the future. Until next time, thank you for watching. Happy studying, everybody, and we'll all talk soon.